All right, good evening. This is Rochelle. We're going to be covering conference call number 11, which is keeping the deals together. And this is near and dear to my heart. That's what I've been doing all day since the moment I got in this morning at about 9 o'clock until just before I got on the conference call. That's all I've been doing. The entire day has been spent keeping deals together and making sure that we have very little risk at Best Choice Realty. So I definitely am very confident at giving you some tips and tricks to offset conflict, help you with your buyers, making sure that you can keep the deals together on your own. But when you do have difficulty, you do have a good resource, and you can pick up the phone and call a broker, a managing broker or designated broker who has overseen thousands of transactions. So let's start with just why we do what we do, and then I'm going to go into some key things as far as understanding remorse and then ways to prevent it, and maybe some contract strategies or time savers. And we'll kind of go to that point tonight. So if that's what you're here for, that's what we're going to cover. Just a couple housekeeping things. You know, we do cover 1 through 12 conference calls. So we're on the 11th conference call. And then we have one more, and then we start the sequence over again. As you have questions or as you think of questions during the session, we have muted the line so there's no background noise as you're driving or you're taking care of business at this time. But go ahead and send me an email at rochelle@bestchoicerealtywa.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions or give further explanation or discuss any handouts that we go over on these calls. So introduction, why we do what we do. 30% of all the deals that are written or that get under contract are at the risk of cancellation. That statistic has been proven time and time again, and multitude of other brokerages that look at transactions and that monitor risk and that oversee, you know, all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. 30% of all the deals today are at risk of cancellation. And so it's an important topic to cover as far as how do you understand remorse and how do you prevent things from happening, and maybe some strategies of dealing with your contract that will save you time or prevent cancellation. The first thing to understand is that we actually do risk meetings in our office once a week, where I meet with my admins and have them make sure I'm going through and having them make notes on the files to make sure we're not missing something of importance on your transactions. And we do that weekly. And as we need something, we would email our agents and say, for example, John, you're missing XYZ or the 35R or the earnest money deposit receipt. You're missing that to complete the transaction. And so we would send it as an email to you, and we would ask that you respond quickly or in a timely manner so that we can attach that to the transaction and get you paid on time. We are very good at seeing potential risk that comes from that based on our risk meetings that we do every week. And every Monday we do those risk meetings. So you can expect an email from us if you have a pending transaction with maybe some documents you're missing or a question that I might have as I'm trying to keep the deals together. Understanding remorse. So the thing to understand remorse is there's a reason why buyers and sellers have remorse. And this is probably the biggest cause of why deals cancel. So some tips would probably be helpful for you to understand as you're thinking about your current buyers, or you're in the middle of negotiating for a transaction or getting a buyer a deal. If you have a deal already signed around, already accepted by the seller, and you know the buyer's like, oh, I don't know, I'm just having second thoughts about this property. You may want to redo a buyer consultation. This is a perfect opportunity to sit down with them and just explain or discuss why they got into the negotiation to begin with. You know, why they love that neighborhood, why they both the husband and the wife agreed to move forward with that sale. So you might want to redo the buyer consultation and reset expectations if it's not readily available. Just my laptop. And then The next thing to make sure to do would be to understand why the buyers have remorse. Buyers always question their choices, and some of the most analytical buyers will question their choices more than, say, somebody like me who makes decisions very quickly and very decisive on whether to move forward or not. For an example of somebody who would be like me, very decisive, would be, when I bought one of my homes, I had just given birth to one of my kids, and I had the offer already written when I went to view the property. It was an open house that I viewed this particular property, and I already had written the contract of what I was offering, and it was in my diaper bag. That's how decisive I can be at times. Most buyers are not that decisive. In fact, more buyers are very analytical, like to think things over, and do not handle change very well. In fact, buying a home to them is overwhelming. So with that becomes where they question their choices. So you always have to be addressing their questions, and making sure that they understand that you're working with them to their goal. If you don't deal with buyer's remorse or deal with their questions in a timely manner, you'll see more of your deals cancel in result of that. Many doubt whether it's the right time to buy. So when you are thinking about how to communicate with your buyer once you get under contract, you might want to think of a nice email that you can send out, or, explain to them that, the timing was awesome that we were able to get that property for you. Just re-emphasize how important that was, because many doubt whether it's the right time to buy. And that's a psychological thing that goes on in a buyer's head. Others speculate whether the prices will drop, so they can become nervous. And oftentimes they think, if I lock my interest rate now, then I'm not going, what if it goes lower? And there's that question in their mind. So again, maybe when you send out congratulations, I'm happy for you guys, we got the deal, and maybe a little bit the day or two after, you just check in with them and let them know, I just can't believe we got that deal. It's the best time to buy, and I know you're working with your lender, and the rates look really good as well. Just re-emphasizing how important those two things are. And that reassures the buyer so that they can handle the change, that they don't have as many questions throughout the closing process. The lack of participation by one or more people also causes buyer's remorse. So maybe you were talking with the husband, and the husband was like, I'm good to go, I'm really excited about the purchase, and then you find out the day or two after you get under contract, the wife is just really nervous and unsure. Make sure that you involve all of the decision makers in your communication, especially when you go under contract, so that, maybe if you were communicating with just the buyer, that with the husband, and then now we're under contract and they were not looped into the email discussion or to the contracts, make sure that the buyer, both buyers or all decision makers are involved in that communication loop, so that they feel like they're being taken care of. Also, you may want to ask the buyer some questions if they're feeling like there's remorse that's starting to set in. Remind them about why they wanted to purchase. And if they think of, the reason why I wanted to purchase was just because my parents think it's the time to buy my own place, or my friends just bought a place. Those are some indications or answers to that question that's really very risky, where if they said, I've always wanted to own my own home, my wife and I have set aside money for many, many years to be able to afford our home. Those are kinds of questions or answers that would lead to less buyer's remorse, where if they're going through the process very quickly and hastily, oftentimes at some point in the transaction there might be a roadblock that's thrown up. And so if you can head that on early, you're going to have less buyer's remorse throughout. Now I'm going to jump into ways to prevent it. How can you prevent somebody from having remorse, or, the cancellations? It's not always remorse. Sometimes the cancellations come because of inspection or financing, or just even the communication that becomes really, really dicey. So let's talk real quickly about inspections. you always want to advise your client that they do an inspection. We've got a lot of offers being written right now, and there's still multiple offers in areas. And I'm seeing a lot of communication by listing agents where they're asking the buyers, do you want to waive it? We highly advise that you waive it or conduct your inspection before the review period. That's okay to use a 35P and to do a review period before, they review offers. But if they're asking you to waive an inspection, even in the form of an email, that does not bode well for the seller or for the listing agent. You should always advise, if you're emailing your